Hey everyone! Ready to dive deep into the world of Rambo? First Blood Part 2? Released on May 22, 1985. This film has sparked endless discussions, and today, we're uncovering every thrilling detail. If you enjoy this deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps us grow. And for more incredible movie explorations and hidden gems, subscribe to the channel. Now, let's unravel the magic behind this cinematic masterpiece. It begins with a man in chains. Sentenced to hard labor after the events of the first film, John Rambo, the battle-scarred Vietnam vet, is hammering away in a prison yard. He's silent, expressionless, until Colonel Sam Troutman appears, not with sympathy, but with an offer. The government wants Rambo back, not to fight this time, they say, but for a reconnaissance mission in the very jungles that made him who he is. The task? Return to Vietnam, locate American prisoners of war, and come home. Simple. Clean. But nothing with Rambo is ever simple. As the helicopter blades roar and Rambo descends into the humid, lethal jungle, the tone shifts. What begins as a high-stakes covert op quickly spirals into betrayal and chaos. He's ordered not to engage, just take photos. But when he discovers tortured POWs left behind by their own government, the switch flips. He breaks orders. He becomes the mission. The jungle isn't just a setting. It's a living, breathing force. It's here we meet Co Bao, the resourceful Vietnamese rebel who becomes Rambo's guide and connection to humanity. Together, they navigate minefields, enemy patrols, and Soviet interference. Yes, the film cranks the Cold War heat up to 11. Introducing Russian forces who are not just backing the Vietnamese army but leading the torture and interrogation of American captives. This adds a layer of geopolitical tension that fuels Rambo's rage and reinforces his disillusionment with authority. And then it happens. The betrayal. Rambo successfully locates a POW and brings him to the extraction point, only to be abandoned by Murdoch, the smirking bureaucrat who was never interested in saving lives, only covering up political liabilities. It's a gut-punch moment, amplified by Stallone's silent fury. He's captured, tortured, electroshocked, and taunted, but this is Rambo we're talking about. He turns pain into power. With Co Bao's help, he escapes, and what follows is pure cinematic carnage. This is the Rambo most people remember, shirtless, mud-covered, a bow in one hand and explosive-tipped arrows in the other. Each action sequence is shot with kinetic intensity. Stallone moves like a jungle predator, dismantling squads of enemies with brutal efficiency. When Co Bao is killed in a heartbreaking ambush, the personal stakes hit their peak. The mission is no longer about orders or redemption, it's vengeance. Rambo infiltrates the prison camp once more, rescuing multiple POWs this time, and with grit and guerrilla brilliance, he commandeers a helicopter to escape. But he's not done. He returns to the American base with a fiery landing, confronting Murdoch in one of the most quoted scenes in action cinema history. I want what they want for our country to love us, as much as we love it. It's not just an action movie line. It's a cry from a generation of forgotten soldiers. The film ends not with celebration, but with Rambo walking into the horizon, refusing accolades, haunted but resolute. He's not fighting for medals. He's fighting for the brothers left behind. Rambo, First Blood Part 2 is more than just explosions and muscles. Beneath the gunfire and pyrotechnics, it's a story about betrayal, abandonment, and the cost of war on the individual. James Cameron's initial script, later revised by Stallone, sharpened the action while still retaining a beating emotional core. The film exploded at the box office, earning over $300 million worldwide, transforming John Rambo from a tragic figure into a larger-than-life symbol of American strength and retribution. Released on May 22, 1985, Rambo, First Blood Part 2 exploded into theaters with the force of a grenade. Audiences around the world watched as John Rambo returned to the screen, more dangerous, more determined, and more unforgettable than ever before. The movie didn't just continue the story of a broken war veteran. It transformed him into a global symbol of power, rebellion, and survival. At a time when action movies were starting to grow bigger, louder, and more visually intense, this film came in and changed the game. It wasn't just another sequel. It was a bold, fiery statement that grabbed attention and never let go. What makes this movie stand out, even today, is its raw energy. It's fast. It's emotional. It's intense. Right from the beginning, you can feel the pressure building. John Rambo, once a quiet drifter who just wanted peace, is now behind bars. He's been punished for what happened in the first film, but he hasn't broken. That strength, that silence, it's what draws you in. When Colonel Troutman appears with an offer to free him in exchange for a mission, the film wastes no time. The setup is simple. Go back to Vietnam, find out if American prisoners of war are still being held, and come back. But if you know anything about Rambo, you know nothing stays simple for long. From the moment he's dropped into the jungle, the movie never slows down. The environment is thick, wet, and alive. You can almost feel the sweat and hear the insects buzzing. There's no clean path forward, just dense wilderness, enemies around every corner, and secrets hidden in the shadows. It doesn't take long for Rambo to uncover the truth. There are prisoners still out there, broken and forgotten by the same country they served. And worse, his own government doesn't want him to bring them back. They want proof, not rescue. Politics over lives. When Rambo learns this, everything changes. One of the film's strengths is how it handles betrayal. Not just betrayal by enemies, but betrayal by the very system that created him. Rambo isn't just fighting soldiers, he's fighting lies. He's sent on a mission designed to fail, and when he doesn't follow orders, he's left to die. This isn't just about bullets and bombs. It's about trust, anger, and the pain of being abandoned again and again. The character of Rambo feels real because his pain is real. He's not just mad, he's heartbroken. And Sylvester Stallone delivers that pain without needing long speeches. His face says everything. It's personal. Every fight, every arrow, every explosion, it all comes from a place deep inside. Visually, the movie is striking. The jungle is not just a backdrop. It's a character. Dark, alive, always watching. The camera work makes you feel like you're right there with Rambo, hiding in the mud, climbing trees, watching enemies from the shadows. The action scenes are explosive but never messy. You always know where Rambo is, what he's doing, and why. Whether he's firing an M60 or setting traps in the trees, the film gives every action a sense of purpose. And then there's the bow. It's quiet, deadly, iconic. It turns Rambo into something almost mythical, more than a man, less than a machine, just pure survival. Then there's Kobow. She's not just a side character or a love interest. She's strong, smart, and vital to Rambo's mission. She brings humanity back into his world. In a place full of enemies, she's someone he can trust. Their connection is brief, but it feels honest. When she's taken from him, you see the last bit of light in Rambo fade. What follows is not just revenge. It's rage, sorrow, and a sense of duty to finish what he started, no matter the cost. The movie's emotional impact is hidden beneath its explosions. It's not just about saving POWs, it's about saving a part of Rambo's soul. He was left behind once, and he refuses to leave anyone else. That's why it hits so hard when he storms the prison camp, rescues the men, and flies them back to safety. It's not just a win, it's redemption. But even then, Rambo doesn't celebrate. He confronts Murdoch, the man who betrayed him, and delivers one of the most powerful moments in the film. He doesn't want apologies. He wants justice, not just for himself, but for every soldier who never came home. What makes Rambo First Blood Part 2 more than just an action movie is the way it taps into real emotion. Behind the muscles and weapons is a man who still feels lost. He's a soldier without a war, a hero without peace. And that's what makes him relatable, even decades later. This movie came at a time when America was still struggling with its memory of the Vietnam War. People were angry, confused. They didn't know how to feel about the soldiers who fought and the ones who never came back. Rambo became a way to deal with that pain. He fought the battles that couldn't be fought in real life. He brought the missing home. He gave people someone to cheer for, someone who didn't follow orders when those orders were wrong. And that's why the movie became a cultural phenomenon. It wasn't just popular, it was everywhere. Posters, action figures, video games, headbands, toy weapons. Rambo became a household name. Even people who had never seen the film knew who he was. He stood for strength, survival, and a kind of justice that felt personal. For many viewers, especially veterans, it was more than entertainment. It was therapy. The film's success wasn't just about timing. It was about execution. The pacing is tight. The action is relentless. There are no dull moments. Every scene builds on the last. Every choice Rambo makes feels right for the character. There's no wasted time, no needless subplots. It's clean, focused, and sharp. The soundtrack, with its mix of suspenseful tones and bold brass, adds power to the story without distracting from it. You feel the danger. You feel the urgency. And Stallone, he doesn't just act. He transforms. He becomes Rambo. You see it in the way he moves, the way he looks at people, the way he carries pain in silence. It's a performance that doesn't ask for sympathy but earns it anyway. And that's the magic of the character. He's not asking to be understood. He's just trying to survive one mission at a time. Even today, you can see the movie's influence. Modern action heroes, especially those who fight against corrupt systems or carry personal trauma, owe something to Rambo. The lone warrior, the one-man army, started here, not with fancy gadgets or superhero powers, but with a man who was trained to survive and forced to do so by a world that never gave him peace. And while the film is full of big moments, it's the quiet ones that stay with you. Rambo standing alone after the mission, refusing to go back to the world that betrayed him. That's not just the end of a film. It's the beginning of a legend. So if you've never seen Rambo, First Blood Part 2, or if it's been a while, it's worth going back. Not just for the action, though there's plenty of that, but for the heart that beats underneath. It's a movie about loyalty, loss, courage, and what happens when a man is pushed too far. It's about taking back control when everything has been stripped away. And above all, it's about remembering the people who never got to come home. John Rambo is locked behind prison bars, chained to a rock-breaking chain gang, and haunted by the scars of his past. Then one day his old commander, Colonel Sam Troutman, walks in, offering him a way out with a sly yet urgent promise. There's talk that American soldiers might still be held as POWs in Vietnam. If Rambo agrees to take a top-secret reconnaissance mission to find proof, he'll earn a presidential pardon and walk free. Troutman is the only man Rambo trusts, and though he's wary, the chance to serve again, and perhaps help bring those missing men home, pulls him in. He accepts. Rambo is flown to a base in Thailand, where he meets the mission team, Erickson, the confident helicopter pilot, his uneasy partner known as Lifer, who listens and obeys, and Marshal Murdoch, a bureaucrat whose polite smile doesn't reach his eyes. From the moment Murdoch lays out the rules, no rescue, no engagement, only photographs, Rambo senses something is wrong. He will only obey if he believes what he's doing is true and honorable. At dawn, Rambo jumps from a helicopter into the jungle darkness. His parachute snags and tears, dragging most of his gear into the clouds. When he cuts free, he's left with just a knife and a bow with a few arrows, stripped to the bones. But stripped Rambo is still dangerous. His survival skills kick in immediately. He tracks trails, moves silently through vines and mud, and meets with his contact, a Vietnamese freedom fighter named Co Bao, fierce and resourceful. She guides him upriver in a small boat manned by local river pirates, and in her calm presence, Rambo seems to remember who he is. They reach the POW camp, once Rambo's own prison in Vietnam. Guard towers loom, prisoners stand misaligned behind barbed fences, and Captain Vin and Lieutenant Tay patrol with brutal authority. Rambo signals that he sees American captives inside. Against orders, he makes his move. Patient and cautious, Co Bao slips inside, and Rambo frees one young man, Banks, ushering him out through darkness and confusion. They fight past the pirates who turn on them, launching the RPG that sends a gunboat sinking. Explosions echo through the river canyon. Rambo and Banks break free. Co Bao disappears into the night. Disaster follows them out. Troutman watches from above in a rescue chopper, ready to dive in under mortar fire. But Murdoch, back at the command base, orders the pilot to abort. The chopper pulls away, leaving Rambo and Banks stranded behind enemy lines. Lifer blocks Troutman from interfering. Rambo's face hardens as he's captured, suspicion turning to betrayal. Back in camp, Captain Vin's regime is not alone. Soviet forces are embedded, led by Lieutenant Colonel Podovsky and his right-hand man Sergeant Yushin. Podovsky is cold and calm as he interrogates Rambo, coaxing him to broadcast a demoralizing message to Murdoch. Warn him not to send anyone else. When Rambo refuses, torture begins. Electric shocks, threats with leeches, degrading, dehumanizing. Then Banks is dragged in, threatened with gouged eyes. Rambo's silence cracks under menace. He makes a broken plea, ordering his own betrayer on frequency. He mocks Murdoch even as the pain pulses through his body. Then Bao reappears, disguised and daring, to smuggle him out. Together they slither through corridors, down into the shadows and into the jungle. Rambo, naked from torture but fierce with purpose, escapes. He and Bao run under the moon, the camp lights shrinking behind them. Bao pleads with Rambo to promise they will go to the United States together, a chance for both to live free from war. Rambo says he will. But before they reach safety, Lieutenant Tay's soldiers ambush them. Gunfire rings out. Bao falls. Rambo catches her forever still. He buries her beneath dense foliage, cuts the red headband from her arm, drapes it over her and straps on her necklace to his neck. Vow whispered under breath. He will remember. Fueled by betrayal and grief, the next hours are a calculated storm. Rambo makes trap after trap, using guile and stealth in the jungle. He sets fire in a dry valley as Vietnamese soldiers charge forward. The flames consume them. He employs explosive-tipped arrows, lighting tracks of destruction across enemy lines. Then he spots Lieutenant Tay and fires, one arrow killing the man. Rambo doesn't smile. He stands silent watcher. Birds flee the brush. Above him, Yushin attacks from a helicopter, firing down. Rambo scales the chopper as it rises, climbs into the open cabin, overpowers him, shoves him out to fall to his death. In that moment, he's no longer hunted, he's the hunter. He takes control of the helicopter and swoops low, raining rockets on the POW camp, shattering fences, breaking chains, releasing new captives into the sky. Confusion, chaos. He brings several men aboard. Podovsky responds with force. His own Mi-24 attack helicopter roars in. Rambo fakes a crashing dive to trick him, then hits him with a rocket at the last second. The Soviet chopper explodes, falling like a twisted corpse to earth. Silence. Radio crackles as Troutman guides him home. Rambo leads the rescued POWs into the captured chopper and turns west toward the extraction zone. Ahead lies safety, but so does confrontation. That moment marks the shift beyond rescue mission to a reckoning with the men who sent him here to die. Up until now, Rambo has moved silently, survived, escaped betrayal, and avenged. After this, everything changes. In the blazing heat of a prison yard, surrounded by fences and guards, John Rambo swings a sledgehammer into solid rock. He's not angry. He's not broken. He's simply surviving, quietly, patiently, with that steady fire in his eyes that never truly fades. This is the same man who once took on an entire town alone. A former Green Beret, a Vietnam veteran, now locked up because the country he fought for didn't know what to do with him after the war. But even behind bars, Rambo still carries the instincts of a soldier. One morning, something changes. A familiar face steps onto the gravel. Colonel Sam Troutman, the one man from Rambo's past who never treated him like a problem. Troutman brings an offer. There's a chance to earn a pardon, wipe Rambo's slate clean. The mission: head back to Vietnam. Find out if American prisoners of war are still being held. No rescue, no combat, just take photos. Rambo listens without blinking. He asks just one question. Do we get to win this time? The question lingers in the air like smoke. Troutman doesn't answer directly, but Rambo knows. This isn't about justice, it's about politics. Rambo accepts. They fly him out of the prison and straight into a military base in Thailand. Here, he meets the rest of the team. Leading the operation is Marshal Murdoch, a government man with polished shoes and a false smile. Everything about Murdoch feels off. His words, his handshake, the way he hides behind paperwork and titles. He tells Rambo the mission is simple. Infiltrate a sector in Vietnam, confirm the presence of POWs, and get out. Do not engage. Do not rescue. Just take pictures. Rambo nods, but inside he already knows. He won't stand by and do nothing if he finds Americans suffering in cages. He gears up, knife, bow, arrows, his old dog tags. But as they load into the chopper and fly toward Vietnam, a storm brews overhead. The weather is rough. The clouds grow thick. Murdoch watches from the command room, safe and clean, while Rambo jumps alone into the jungle with nothing but his instincts and what he can carry. The parachute snags. He crashes through trees, loses most of his equipment, and lands hard. But this is Rambo. He doesn't complain. He gets up, bruised but alert, scanning his surroundings. Deep in enemy territory, Rambo moves like a ghost through the trees. He meets his local contact, a Vietnamese rebel named Co Bao. She's quick, smart, and unafraid. Rambo says little, but his eyes speak volumes. They travel together by boat, heading upriver, using a cover story provided by local pirates. Co Bao is his guide and translator, and quickly, their bond begins to grow. She asks why he came back. Rambo replies with a quiet truth. He's just trying to find what was left behind. She understands more than she lets on. As they reach the area near the suspected camp, the jungle thickens. They hide in the trees, watching through binoculars. And then Rambo sees it, confirmation. American soldiers, thin and broken, locked in cages like animals. He turns to Co Bao. The mission was supposed to end here. Take the photos. Leave. But that was never Rambo's plan. Not when lives are at stake. He waits until night falls. Then, using only a knife and his bare hands, he slips inside the camp. The guards are cruel, shouting orders, dragging prisoners through the mud. Rambo moves in silence. He finds one man, barely conscious, beaten but alive. Rambo lifts him up and carries him through the darkness. As the alarm sounds, guards come running. Gunfire breaks the stillness of night. Rambo and Co Bao fight their way out, ducking through the jungle, trying to reach the extraction point. The radio is crackling. The chopper is close. Colonel Troutman orders the pilot to bring the bird in for pickup. Rambo and the POW are on the run, breathless, bleeding. But then, everything turns. Back at base, Murdoch hears that Rambo has recovered a live prisoner, and suddenly he panics. He never wanted a rescue. He wanted a clean report. No survivors means no responsibility. So he orders the chopper to turn around. Troutman argues, furious, but the order is clear. The rescue is cancelled. Rambo is left behind. The helicopter rises. The camera lingers on Rambo, standing on the riverbank, betrayed once again. The look on his face isn't rage. It's cold realization. He's been used. And now he's surrounded. The Vietnamese guards close in. Rambo tries to fight, but he's outnumbered. He's captured, dragged back to the camp, tied and tortured. They string him up, shock him with electricity, cut into his skin. The pain is unbearable, but Rambo doesn't scream. He just stares, watches, waits. His body suffers, but his spirit does not crack. Then they bring in another prisoner, a young man. They threaten him, they beat him, and still Rambo stays quiet. The real threat appears in the form of Soviet soldiers. Lieutenant Colonel Podovsky and his right-hand man, Sergeant Yushin. Cold, calculated, and in control. The Soviets are helping the Vietnamese run the prison, using the captives for intelligence and propaganda. Podovsky wants Rambo to read a message into the radio, one that will demoralize the American side and justify their own presence. Rambo is forced to speak. He says he's alone. He says not to send anyone else. But then, in a subtle moment, he stares directly into the camera and says Murdoch's name. He doesn't ask for help. He doesn't beg. He just says it like a warning. Murdoch hears it from miles away and knows. Rambo is coming for him. Later that night, when all seems lost, Co Bao returns. Disguised as a local, she sneaks into the camp and frees Rambo from his chains. He's weak, bruised, but not broken. As they escape into the jungle once again, she patches his wounds and whispers a dream. When this is all over, she wants to go to America. She wants peace. A life without war. Rambo doesn't say much, but the look in his eyes softens. He tells her he'll take her there. For once, the soldier dares to imagine a life beyond fighting. But the jungle is cruel. Their moment of quiet is shattered by gunfire. Enemy troops find them. Kobau is hit. Rambo holds her as she dies in his arms. She begs him not to forget her. And he doesn't. He takes her necklace, wraps her headband around his forehead, and something inside him snaps. Whatever part of him still hoped for peace is gone. What remains is a warrior. From that point on, Rambo is no longer hiding. He becomes a storm moving through the jungle. He sets traps, uses the land like a weapon, becomes invisible and unstoppable. One by one, he picks off enemy soldiers, moving with speed and fury. He hunts Tay, the officer who gave the order to kill Kobau, and eliminates him with an arrow straight to the heart. The enemy sends helicopters after him. One gunship flies low, scanning the trees. Rambo takes a chance, climbs on board in midair, and throws the gunner out before taking control. Now, armed with the enemy's firepower, he turns his sights on the prison camp. The skies turn black as Rambo's stolen chopper rains destruction. He destroys the guard towers, blows apart the fences, and sets the prisoners free. He lands long enough to pull the surviving Americans on board. They look at him not with fear, but with something close to awe. This man, alone, has done what governments refuse to do. He's bringing them home. But it isn't over. Not yet. High above, Podovsky is waiting, piloting a more powerful helicopter loaded with rockets. A final showdown begins. One chopper against another. One man against a system that failed him. Rambo fakes a crash, dives low, then climbs at the last second and fires. The enemy helicopter explodes in the sky. The jungle lies scorched and silent behind him as Rambo flies the stolen helicopter through the smoky skies. Inside the aircraft, the rescued prisoners sit still, bruised and stunned, watching this silent warrior pilot them to freedom. They don't ask questions. They don't need to. Everything they've seen tells them all they need to know. This man came alone, fought against armies, and dragged them back from hell. But the mission isn't over. Not for Rambo. Not yet. As the helicopter crosses into safe territory, Rambo radios the U.S. base. Colonel Troutman responds immediately, relief in his voice, while Murdoch listens in silence. The man who had tried to bury the truth is now facing the consequences of it. Rambo doesn't say much, just that he's coming in. That's all he says. But the tone, the weight behind it, is enough to send a shiver through everyone listening. Rambo lands the helicopter at the base with a thunderous roar, dust flying in every direction. Medics rush to help the rescued POWs. Soldiers on the ground watch in stunned silence as Rambo steps out, gun in hand, face unreadable. He doesn't look left or right. He walks straight through the base, straight toward the command center. Every step is a promise. He isn't there to celebrate. He isn't there to debrief. He's there to settle the score. Inside, Murdoch is scrambling, trying to make himself look busy, trying to prepare excuses. He hears the boots before he sees the face. And then the door crashes open. Rambo storms in, gun raised, eyes burning with quiet fury. Everyone in the room freezes. Murdoch tries to speak, but the words fall apart. He stutters, stammers, looking for a way out. But there isn't one. Rambo walks past the guards like they aren't even there, straight up to Murdoch, and slams the weapon down on the control console. He leans in close, voice low but heavy. There are more men out there. Find them, or I'll find you. He doesn't shout. He doesn't threaten wildly. He just makes it clear. The mission was never about politics. It was never about proving a point. It was about bringing them home. And that's exactly what he did, alone. There's no grand applause. No heroic speech. Rambo turns and walks out, leaving Murdoch shaking in his seat. Outside, Troutman finds him. The two men stand quietly. Troutman doesn't try to comfort him. He knows Rambo isn't looking for that. He simply says what needs to be said, that he's proud of him, that no one else could have done what he did. Rambo nods, not with pride, but with quiet acceptance. It's not about being a hero. It never was. It was about doing what's right. Troutman tells him the war is over. But Rambo looks away and says, "For you, maybe. For me, to survive is to go on fighting." That's the truth he's always carried. The fight never really ends. Not when you've seen what he's seen. Not when you've been through what he's been through. He doesn't fit into parades or speeches. He fits into silence, into shadows, into places where pain still lives. Rambo walks into the jungle one last time, leaving behind the rescue, the betrayal, and the base that tried to forget the men who never came home. He's not running. He's returning to the only world he understands. But let's rewind for a moment and feel the full weight of what just unfolded. This second half of the film shifts everything. In the beginning, Rambo was sent into Vietnam as a tool, an expendable asset in a game of politics. Murdoch never expected him to come back, never wanted him to succeed. The mission was designed to fail because success would expose the government's lies. But what Murdoch didn't count on was Rambo's unbreakable will. Once abandoned, Rambo could have given up. He could have hidden, disappeared, or waited to be captured again. But instead, he became something else. Something unstoppable. The moment Ko Bao dies, it's like a fuse is lit inside him that doesn't go out. That loss pushes him to complete what he started. Not because it was a mission, but because it became personal. Those prisoners weren't strangers. They were him, and he wasn't going to leave them behind. Every move he made in the jungle after that moment was precise, purposeful, and relentless. He didn't lash out with blind rage. He moved like a ghost, striking only when necessary. He used the land around him, his training, his instincts. He wasn't out for blood, he was out for justice. That's why the final assault on the POW camp feels so powerful. It's not just action. It's a release of everything he's been holding inside. And then, once the prisoners are freed and the threat is eliminated, he could have walked away. He could have flown home and let the government spin the story however they wanted. But Rambo doesn't do silence anymore. He confronts Murdoch head-on, not with violence, but with truth. And that's even more terrifying than any weapon. The emotional resolution of the film doesn't come with a parade. It comes with a quiet conversation between two soldiers, Troutman and Rambo, standing in the aftermath. Rambo says what every forgotten veteran has felt. They want the country they fought for to love them as much as they loved it. It's not about medals or headlines. It's about being seen, being heard, being valued. By the time Rambo walks off at the end, the audience doesn't just feel like they watched an action movie. They feel like they've been through something heavy, something real. Because beneath all the explosions and high-stakes combat, Rambo. First Blood Part 2 is a story about one man's fight to bring dignity back to those the world forgot. Everything that happened, from the betrayal to the rescue to the confrontation, wasn't just about plot. It was about character. It was about taking a man who had been broken by war and letting him write his own ending. It was about giving voice to a generation of veterans who came home to silence. And it was about showing that sometimes one man really can make a difference. Not by following orders, but by doing what's right, no matter the cost. And that's why the final image of Rambo walking into the jungle isn't sad. It's powerful. He's not lost. He's free. He's not defeated. He's just choosing to walk a path no one else can. And as the music rises and the screen fades to black, we're left with one thought. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for truth. And Rambo won. John Rambo doesn't speak much. He doesn't need to. Every expression, every glance, every silent breath he takes in Rambo. First Blood Part 2 speaks louder than words ever could. From the very first frame, we see a man buried under years of pain, discipline, and memory. He's not just a soldier behind bars. He's a man exiled by his own country, carrying the ghosts of a war that never ended for him. His body is strong, but his soul is tired. And yet, there's still something in his eyes, something unkillable. A quiet fire that refuses to go out. When Colonel Troutman approaches him with the mission, Rambo doesn't leap at the opportunity. He listens, gauges, measures. His first instinct isn't vengeance or pride. It's doubt. Do we get to win this time? He asks, a line that cuts deeper than it sounds. It isn't a question. It's a wound. Because for Rambo, winning never looked like glory. It looked like survival. It looked like being forgotten. But under the dirt and scars, there's still loyalty. And for Troutman, for the one man who never turned his back, he says yes. Sylvester Stallone doesn't act Rambo. He becomes him. With only a handful of lines, he delivers a complete emotional arc. His body language is sharp, controlled, always ready for impact, but his eyes are where the truth lies. Rambo is always watching, always calculating, always waiting for the moment things go wrong. Because deep down, he knows they will. Rambo's transformation through the story isn't a shift from weak to strong. He was always strong. The transformation is about trust, about whether he dares to believe again in a system that betrayed him. At first, he's wary but compliant. He follows Murdoch's rules. He sticks to the mission. But once the betrayal happens, once the chopper turns around and leaves him to die, something inside him breaks, and something else rises in its place. The silence turns cold. The hesitation vanishes. Rambo stops waiting for orders and becomes the mission himself. Not because he was told to, but because it's the right thing to do. When Kobau enters the picture, we see the first hint of softness in him. She isn't a damsel. She's a fighter. Smart, aware, and brave enough to walk through fire beside him. Rambo doesn't flirt. He doesn't need romance. But what he gives Kobau is more honest than anything he gives anyone else. Trust. He lets her in, lets her see a glimpse of the man beneath the steel. And in return, she offers him hope. A future. A dream. When she asks if he'll take her to America after it's all over, he doesn't pause. He says yes. It's a rare moment where we see the soldier allow himself to imagine something beyond combat. And then, in the blink of an eye, she's gone. Killed before his eyes in a rain of bullets. And with her dies the only soft thing left in him. He buries her with his hands, wraps her headband around his forehead, and becomes the weapon everyone feared he would be. His mission is no longer about orders. It's about memory. It's about justice. Rambo is unforgettable not because he's loud or flashy, but because he carries so much beneath the surface. And Stallone, with more emotion in a look than most actors put in a speech, shows us a man who never asked to be a hero, never cared to be one. He just couldn't turn away when others were in pain. Beside Rambo stands Colonel Sam Troutman, the only man who treats him like a human being, not a tool. Played with calm authority by Richard Crenna, Troutman is more than a commanding officer. He's a surrogate father, a bridge between Rambo and a world that's forgotten how to value men like him. Troutman believes in Rambo even when others write him off. He doesn't bark orders. He guides with quiet respect. When the mission begins to fall apart, Troutman is the only one who fights to bring Rambo back. His frustration with Murdoch isn't political. It's personal. Because he knows Rambo. He trained him. He watched the world break him. And he understands that when you betray someone like Rambo, there's no undoing it. Troutman's arc is subtle, but meaningful. He starts as the man delivering the government's offer, the middleman. But by the end, he's the only voice of truth in a room full of lies. His final conversation with Rambo isn't about orders or debriefings. It's about dignity, about finding peace in a world that has no place for broken warriors. In just a few lines, Crenna delivers the message at the heart of the film. That soldiers are more than weapons, they're people and they deserve better. In stark contrast to both men is Marshal Murdoch. Played with slippery confidence by Charles Napier, Murdoch is the polished face of bureaucratic cowardice. He smiles, he nods, he shakes hands, but every move is calculated to protect himself. He doesn't care about truth. He cares about optics. From the moment he meets Rambo, there's a tension, an unspoken warning that this man has no interest in honor. His mission is designed to fail. He wants a report, not a rescue. He speaks about intelligence, data, protocol, but it's all a smokescreen. He's not a villain with fangs. He's worse. He's a man who hides behind rules while others bleed. Murdoch's significance in the story isn't just to create conflict. It's to highlight the difference between appearance and reality. He represents the system that forgot the POWs, that abandoned Rambo, that told the world the war was over, while men still rotted in cages. And when Rambo returns, face to face with him, we see the moment where the mask cracks. Murdoch's fear is real, because he knows the weight of what he's done. He might live, but he'll never be safe again. Not with Rambo out there. Among the supporting cast, one presence that leaves a lasting mark is Ko Bao. Julia Nickson brings a quiet strength to the role that makes her stand out. Even with limited screen time, she's not just a guide. She's a mirror to Rambo. Someone who also lives in the aftermath of war. Someone who also wants to escape it. Her death isn't just tragic. It's a turning point. It strips the story of any illusion of peace. And the necklace she gives Rambo? It's not just a token. It's a promise he carries into every battle that follows. Then there's the enemy, Lieutenant Colonel Podovsky and Sergeant Yushin. Together, they represent the physical threat Rambo must face, but also the emotional one. Podovsky isn't a raving monster. He's calm, intelligent, calculated. And that makes him all the more dangerous. He uses fear and power to control. He speaks softly, but delivers pain. Yushin, his enforcer, is a physical brute. His torture scenes with Rambo are hard to watch, not because of gore, but because of the tension. These aren't cartoon villains. They're reflections of a greater machine. A machine that sees people as tools and truth as weakness. But even with all the enemies, all the politics, all the betrayal, the emotional heart of the film always returns to Rambo. His journey is lonely, brutal, heartbreaking, but through every fight, every explosion, every betrayal, he keeps going. Not for glory, not even for revenge, but because he refuses to be silent. He refuses to let the forgotten stay forgotten. And that's what makes him more than an action hero. That's what makes him a symbol. The final image of Rambo walking into the jungle isn't just an ending. It's a message. He's not going home because there's no home to return to. Not yet. Not until the country he bled for is ready to understand what he, and thousands of others, went through. He's not angry. He's not bitter. He's simply tired. And yet, even in that silence, he carries on. From the moment Rambo, First Blood Part 2 bursts onto the screen with its iconic helicopter flying over the dense Vietnamese jungle, it invites viewers not just into an action story, but into a world thick with meaning. Sometimes obvious, sometimes hidden like shadows lurking between trees. The movie doesn't just entertain. It's sprinkled with subtle nods and clever hints that reward the sharpest eyes and most attentive hearts. Take the opening scene, for example. As Rambo is brought out of prison and into the high-stakes world of covert operations, there's a deliberate visual contrast at play. The cold, sterile jail where he's confined is drenched in harsh, unforgiving light, fluorescent, clinical, almost prison-like. When he steps outside, the world suddenly shifts. The jungle, though dangerous and chaotic, is bathed in natural light, symbolizing both freedom and the unknown dangers that lie ahead. This early visual foreshadowing sets the tone for the entire film, where survival depends not just on brute strength, but on navigating the fine line between order and chaos. The film's famous necklace, the small bead bracelet given to Rambo by Ko Bao, isn't just a sentimental token. It's a carefully chosen symbol of hope and connection. In many Southeast Asian cultures, such simple jewelry is a talisman meant to protect against evil and guide one safely home. By wrapping this around his wrist, Rambo carries more than just a memory, he carries a shield. This detail, easy to miss amidst gunfire and explosions, reveals the deeply personal stakes of the mission. It's a reminder that beneath the hardened soldier lies a man who still clings to humanity. And speaking of Ko Bao, her character represents more than just a brief ally or love interest. Her presence is a direct callback to the original First Blood film's exploration of what war does to people who live caught between two worlds. Ko Bao is Vietnamese, yet her actions and spirit challenge the common enemy stereotypes prevalent in many Hollywood films of the era. Her fight alongside Rambo symbolizes a fragile alliance forged not by nationality but by shared suffering and hope. This subtle cultural connection elevates her role, making her death feel like more than a plot device. It becomes a representation of lost potential and innocence destroyed by war. One of the cleverest narrative touches is the way the film uses sound. When Rambo is captured and tortured, the background noises fade into a near silence, except for the sharp metallic clangs and soft breathing. This stark sound design is a kind of auditory isolation, forcing the audience to experience the scene through Rambo's senses, his focus narrowing, his world shrinking to pain and survival. It's a small but powerful way the filmmakers invite viewers inside the character's mind, creating empathy without needing dialogue. The film's subtle use of color is another hidden layer. Throughout the mission, the green of the jungle is dominant, representing life, growth, and natural order. But as Rambo moves deeper into the prison camp and faces the horrors within, the palette shifts. Shadows grow longer, colors desaturate, and the harsh reds of blood and fire become more vivid. This gradual change mirrors Rambo's journey from hope to harsh reality, from mission to vengeance. When he finally escapes with the prisoners, the colors brighten again, signaling a rebirth, not just of life, but of purpose. Even the weapons Rambo chooses tell a story. The compound bow he wields is more than just a tool for silent kills. It's a symbol of his connection to nature and his preference for precision over brute force. In a world dominated by guns and explosions, his bow is almost an anachronism, hearkening back to a primal way of hunting and surviving. This choice quietly underscores his isolation from the modern war machine and his reliance on personal skill and instinct. One often overlooked Easter egg lies in the name Rambo itself. Derived from the French Rambo, as the original novel's author David Morel noted, the name hints at a poetic soul trapped in violence. This theme seeps through the film's narrative fabric. Rambo's moments of silence are almost meditative, and the film's quieter scenes are filled with a kind of rugged lyricism. This duality, poet and warrior, adds a layer of depth for viewers who catch it. Another clever touch comes in the way the film frames Rambo's enemies. The Soviet-backed Vietnamese officers are dressed not as stereotypical villains but as disciplined soldiers with their own codes and rules. This nuanced portrayal reflects the political tensions of the time and subtly criticizes the dehumanization that war fosters on all sides. By giving them intelligence and strategy rather than caricatured evil, the film invites the audience to think about the larger machinery behind conflict. There's also a striking callback to the first movie's iconic bridge scene. When Rambo jumps onto the enemy's supply truck and disables it, it echoes his earlier escape scenes in First Blood, where he used his environment to outwit police forces. This repetition isn't accidental. It's a thematic reminder that despite the changing landscapes, Rambo's core survival skills remain the same, grounded in guerrilla tactics and a deep knowledge of terrain. Look closely at the military patches and insignia worn by characters throughout the film. Many are authentic Vietnam War-era designs, grounding the movie in historical reality. This attention to detail was not just for realism but served as a subtle tribute to the real soldiers who fought and suffered in that conflict. For veterans and history buffs, spotting these symbols becomes a quiet moment of recognition and respect. The film's climactic battle sequence also contains hidden visual storytelling. When Rambo triggers the explosives to destroy the camp, the way the camera lingers on the fire spreading through the huts is reminiscent of the phoenix, a mythological bird reborn from ashes. This symbolism suggests that even in destruction, there is the possibility of renewal, a theme that resonates with the movie's broader message about survival and redemption. Finally, one of the most poignant Easter eggs comes in the form of the film's soundtrack. The iconic score by Jerry Goldsmith uses motifs that repeat from the first film but are layered with new instruments and tones. This musical evolution mirrors Rambo's own transformation. Still the same man, but changed by new battles, new losses, and new hopes. For attentive listeners, these musical callbacks create a subtle emotional bridge between the two films, enriching the viewing experience. These hidden details aren't just clever tricks. They're the veins through which the movie's heart pulses. They deepen the story, reward repeat viewings, and show that Rambo, First Blood Part 2 is more than just a loud action flick. It's a carefully crafted tale, woven with symbols, emotions, and cultural echoes that make the film resonate long after the credits roll. The story of Rambo, First Blood Part 2 is as intense and rugged as the film itself. Behind the roaring explosions and tense jungle fights lies a world of unexpected twists, production battles, and fascinating choices that shaped the movie into the iconic classic it became. The making of this 1985 action spectacle wasn't just about cameras rolling. It was about pushing limits, navigating conflicts, and wrestling with the huge expectations left by the original First Blood. Right from the start, the filmmakers faced a tough challenge. How to follow up a film that was a surprise critical and commercial hit but was more of a psychological drama than an all-out action movie. The original First Blood introduced John Rambo as a broken Vietnam vet struggling with trauma and loneliness. For the sequel, the studio wanted a bigger, louder, more explosive adventure, something to cement Rambo as an action hero of the 80s. This shift in tone created a creative tug-of-war behind the scenes. Sylvester Stallone, who was now not only the star but also the co-writer and producer, was determined to steer the sequel into full action mode. But that meant balancing character depth with blockbuster thrills, a tricky dance. One of the strangest early stories comes from casting. The role of Colonel Troutman was originally offered to another actor before Crenna signed on. The producers initially wanted Lee Marvin, a rugged action veteran known for his gruff presence. But Marvin had scheduling conflicts, so Crenna, already well respected for his work on the Sand Pebbles and Slattery's People, stepped in. His calm, measured performance became the emotional anchor of the film, but it's fascinating to imagine how different Troutman might have been with Marvin's more hard-edged style. Speaking of casting, the search for Co Bao, the Vietnamese ally who forms a crucial bond with Rambo, was another interesting tale. Julia Nixon, who portrayed Co Bao, was a newcomer at the time. Stallone saw something special in her, a mix of vulnerability and toughness that perfectly matched the character's dual nature. What's less known is that Nixon was chosen partly because she could perform many of her own stunts, a significant asset for a role requiring combat scenes in treacherous jungle terrain. This wasn't just a casting choice but a practical decision, as the film had a notoriously demanding shooting schedule. Filming itself became a Herculean task. The movie was shot primarily in Thailand, in dense jungle areas that presented enormous challenges. The crew often battled tropical heat, monsoon rains, and insects while lugging around heavy camera equipment and pyrotechnics. The terrain was so rough that helicopters had to ferry supplies in and out daily. On several occasions, cast and crew members fell ill from heat exhaustion or jungle-related illnesses. The physical demands were real, and they added an authenticity to the film that no studio backlit could replicate. One especially infamous incident involved Sylvester Stallone himself. During a particularly grueling stunt sequence, Stallone insisted on doing his own action scenes to keep the realism intact. During a leap onto a moving truck, he narrowly missed the landing, causing a minor injury. But instead of stopping production, he pressed on, the pain barely noticeable on camera. Stallone's commitment to physicality became legendary on set, inspiring the crew but also raising eyebrows about safety. The movie's special effects team faced their own uphill battle. The jungle explosions and fire sequences were complicated by the wet environment and heavy foliage, which made controlling fire dangerous. One memorable moment during the camp destruction sequence involved a flame that unexpectedly spread faster than planned, forcing the crew to execute an emergency evacuation of nearby areas. Fortunately, no one was seriously hurt, but the chaos added a palpable tension to the filming of what would become one of the movie's most iconic scenes. Another behind-the-scenes challenge was working with the local military extras and animals. The production hired hundreds of Thai soldiers to portray Vietnamese troops, but language barriers made coordination difficult. There were moments when commands got lost in translation, leading to confusion on set. The extras would sometimes break character and laugh during intense scenes, which the director had to carefully manage to maintain the film's serious tone. In a fascinating twist, the film's music composer, Jerry Goldsmith, was brought in under tight deadlines. The pressure to create a soundtrack that echoed the emotional depth of the original yet matched the high-octane sequel was enormous. Goldsmith drew on ethnic instruments and powerful orchestral themes to craft a score that feels both intimate and epic. One of the lesser-known facts is that he recorded some of the percussion in natural jungle locations to capture authentic ambient sounds, a decision that added subtle texture to the soundtrack. The film wasn't without controversy. Its portrayal of Vietnam and the Soviet-backed enemy forces stirred debates upon release. Some critics accused the movie of oversimplifying complex historical conflicts and perpetuating Cold War stereotypes. The filmmakers defended their choices as necessary for storytelling but acknowledged the balancing act between entertainment and political sensitivity. This tension behind the camera mirrored the conflicts on screen, adding another layer to the film's legacy. Interestingly, the movie's marketing campaign leaned heavily into the Rambo as unstoppable warrior image, which surprised some of the cast who saw the story as more nuanced. Stallone himself was reportedly frustrated by the reduction of Rambo to a one-dimensional action figure, but he understood the commercial appeal. This push led to the iconic poster of Rambo holding a massive machine gun, a far cry from the quieter, more introspective moments of the film. On a lighter note, there are amusing anecdotes about the crew's attempts to keep spirits high in the challenging jungle environment. One popular story involves a makeshift talent show staged by the crew, where actors and technicians performed impromptu skits and songs to combat homesickness. Stallone even joined in with a surprising comedic performance that had everyone laughing, a side rarely seen in the intense production diary. One of the strangest and most poignant behind-the-scenes moments came from the camaraderie between Stallone and Crenna. Despite their characters' professional and ideological differences, the actors developed a strong bond off-camera. Crenna often praised Stallone's work ethic and dedication, and Stallone admired Crenna's calm presence that helped ground the chaotic set. Their friendship gave the movie a heart beyond the explosive action. The use of practical effects over CGI, which was still in its infancy in the mid-80s, meant that many scenes required precise choreography and timing. For instance, when Rambo rescues the POWs, the sequence involved carefully staged explosions and physical stunts performed in real time. This gave the film an intensity that computer effects often struggle to replicate. However, it also meant multiple takes had to be done under exhausting conditions, with the cast and crew pushing themselves to the limit. A lesser-known fact is that Stallone was heavily involved in the editing process, working closely with director George P. Cosmatos to pace the movie just right. They experimented with cutting some scenes differently to increase suspense or highlight character emotions, demonstrating Stallone's role not just as a performer but as a creative visionary shaping Rambo's journey. The film's iconic headband worn by Rambo was actually inspired by real-life soldiers who used bandanas as both practical gear and psychological armor. Stallone himself wanted the headband to become a symbol of Rambo's identity, something more than just costume but a badge of survival and resistance. It has since become one of the most recognized symbols in pop culture, proving the power of small details. Towards the end of filming, there were discussions about potential sequels, which meant the crew often filmed scenes with an eye toward future storytelling. Some alternate endings were even shot, though they never made the final cut. These deleted scenes hinted at Rambo's continuing struggle with his place in the world, a theme that would become more pronounced in later movies. Finally, one of the most curious facts is that the production faced censorship challenges in various countries. The intense violence and political themes meant some scenes were trimmed or altered for international audiences. These changes sometimes shifted the story's tone, creating different experiences for viewers depending on where they watched the film. All these stories, facts, and moments paint a picture of a production that was as wild, intense, and complicated as the movie itself. Rambo: First Blood Part 2 wasn't just a film. It was an ordeal, a passion project, and a cultural milestone shaped by countless people overcoming obstacles, pushing boundaries, and telling a story that still resonates decades later. From the very opening sequences of Rambo: First Blood Part 2, the film sets a tone that balances raw physical action with an undercurrent of emotional complexity. One of the most impactful moments that immediately grabs the audience's attention is Rambo's release from prison. This scene is more than a simple setup for the mission ahead. It carries an emotional weight that reflects Rambo's internal struggle with his past and society's rejection of him. The cold, clinical atmosphere of the prison contrasts sharply with the wild jungle that awaits him, symbolizing the transition from captivity to dangerous freedom. The audience senses that Rambo's journey will be as much about reclaiming his identity as it will be about fighting external enemies. This scene resonates deeply because it taps into a universal theme of redemption and second chances. Viewers connect with Rambo not just as an action hero, but as a man burdened by trauma and misunderstood by the world. The emotional tension here is subtle but crucial. It primes the audience to see beyond the explosions and gunfire into the character's soul. Another pivotal moment that stands out occurs early in the jungle, when Rambo is reunited with Colonel Troutman. Their interaction is layered with unspoken history and mutual respect. Troutman's calm demeanor contrasts with Rambo's restless intensity, highlighting their different approaches to war and survival. This dynamic adds depth to the film's narrative, reminding viewers that beneath the violence lies a complex relationship shaped by loyalty, loss, and hope. The performances by Sylvester Stallone and Crenna here elevate the material, turning what could have been a straightforward military briefing into a poignant exchange about duty and friendship. The film's opening mission, sending Rambo into Vietnam to search for POWs, is also key in establishing the stakes and emotional resonance. The haunting silence of the abandoned prison camp immediately signals that the mission will be more complicated than anticipated. The stark emptiness contrasts with the lushness of the jungle outside, creating a haunting visual metaphor for loss and the ghosts of war. Audience reactions to this scene often reveal a mix of hope and dread, as viewers realize that what should have been a simple rescue turns into a tragic and dangerous ordeal. One of the most emotionally charged sequences is Rambo's encounter with Co Bao. Their relationship is delicately built through small gestures, shared glances, and moments of vulnerability amidst chaos. Co Bao's role as both an ally and a symbol of a peaceful future makes her fate deeply affecting. Her death is a turning point, not just for the plot but for Rambo's emotional arc. The scene carries an intense sense of loss and betrayal, as the dream of a mission focused on rescue morphs into one fueled by revenge. The audience feels this shift viscerally, often marking it as one of the film's most memorable and heartbreaking moments. This turning point also underscores a key theme: the cost of war on innocent lives and the personal toll it exacts. Rambo's grief becomes a powerful driver, transforming him from a soldier on a mission into a force of nature. The emotional depth here makes the action that follows feel earned and impactful rather than gratuitous. The film's action sequences themselves hold a special place in cinematic history, but their significance goes beyond spectacle. Take the iconic scene where Rambo silently takes down enemy soldiers with his compound bow. This moment is not just about impressive stunt work. It reflects Rambo's connection to nature and his skill as a warrior who relies on precision and patience. The quietness of the scene contrasts with the typical loud explosions, drawing the audience into Rambo's focused mindset. It invites viewers to admire his resourcefulness and determination on a more intimate level, building tension through suspense rather than noise. This sequence often receives praise for its choreography and pacing, but it's the thematic resonance that makes it truly stand out. The bow symbolizes Rambo's resistance to the overwhelming firepower of modern warfare, an embodiment of the underdog spirit fighting against seemingly insurmountable odds. It's a moment that leaves a lasting impression, blending artistry with narrative meaning. The climactic assault on the prison camp is another moment rich with emotional and thematic significance. This sequence ramps up the intensity, showcasing Rambo's transformation into a one-man army. The choreography, explosions, and tactical brilliance keep viewers on the edge of their seats, but it's the underlying message of liberation and justice that gives the scene its weight. When Rambo frees the prisoners, the film reaches its emotional crescendo, symbolizing hope amidst destruction. Audience reactions to this climax often mix exhilaration with catharsis. Watching Rambo overcome impossible challenges resonates as a triumph not just of physical strength but of spirit. It reaffirms the film's message that even in the darkest moments, courage and determination can prevail. This sense of emotional release is what elevates the action from mere spectacle to a meaningful narrative moment. The film's quieter scenes also deserve attention for their emotional impact. Moments where Rambo contemplates his past or shares silent interactions with Troutman offer a breather from the relentless pace and deepen the viewer's connection to the characters. These scenes ground the film in humanity, reminding audiences that behind the larger-than-life action lies a man haunted by memories and searching for peace. Critically, These moments have been praised for adding layers of complexity to what could have been a straightforward action film. They invite the audience to reflect on themes of trauma, redemption, and the aftermath of war, issues that resonate beyond the screen. The film's ability to weave these themes seamlessly into its narrative is part of why it endures as more than just an action flick. Another key element that shapes the viewer's experience is the film's use of visual and auditory motifs. The recurring imagery of the jungle, the contrast between natural beauty and violent conflict, and the haunting score by Jerry Goldsmith all work together to create an immersive atmosphere. These elements deepen the emotional resonance of key scenes and keep audiences engaged on multiple sensory levels. For example, the juxtaposition of serene jungle vistas with sudden bursts of gunfire serves as a constant reminder of the fragile balance between peace and chaos. The soundtrack's shifting tones, from haunting melodies during quiet moments to adrenaline-pumping rhythms during battles, mirror Rambo's internal journey, guiding the audience's emotional responses. The film's resolution also carries significant emotional weight. When Rambo returns, battered but victorious, there is a sense of bittersweet closure. He has achieved his mission but at great personal cost. This ending challenges the typical action movie trope of the triumphant hero by acknowledging the scars left behind. It invites viewers to contemplate the complexities of war and heroism, making the story linger long after the credits roll. Throughout the film, audience reactions have ranged from pure adrenaline-fueled excitement to moments of reflection and empathy. This blend of visceral thrills and emotional depth is what sets Rambo, First Blood Part 2 apart in the action genre. It manages to entertain while provoking thought, a balance not easily achy. From the moment Rambo, First Blood Part 2 plunges its audience into the dense, shadowy jungles of Vietnam, it becomes clear that this is more than a simple action film. Beneath the adrenaline-pumping sequences and explosive confrontations lies a rich tapestry of themes and symbolism that reflect complex ideas about war, identity, justice, and humanity. The film invites viewers not just to witness a thrilling rescue mission, but to grapple with the broader questions that haunt the post-Vietnam War era and the personal battles fought long after the guns have fallen silent. At its core, the movie is a powerful exploration of trauma and the scars left by war, both physical and psychological. John Rambo embodies the archetype of the wounded warrior, a man shaped by conflict and yet struggling to find peace. His release from prison at the beginning is symbolic of a man still trapped, not just by bars, but by the invisible chains of his past experiences. His reluctance to return to Vietnam is not merely about the danger, but about confronting a battlefield that lives inside him. This internal conflict resonates deeply, illustrating how war's impact extends far beyond the battlefield. Throughout the film, the jungle itself serves as a potent symbol. It represents the wild, untamed nature of both the external environment and Rambo's inner turmoil. The dense foliage, unpredictable terrain, and lurking dangers mirror the chaos and complexity of Rambo's mind. A mind constantly navigating memories, pain, and survival instincts. The jungle is a place where rules are rewritten, and the line between friend and foe blurs, much like the moral ambiguity that war imposes on those caught in its grip. This blurring of moral lines is another central theme. First Blood Part 2 challenges the black and white notions of good versus evil typical in many action films. Rambo is a soldier sent on a government mission, yet he faces betrayal and abandonment by those who should have his back. The Vietnamese enemy, while portrayed as the antagonists, are also soldiers caught in their own complex struggle. The film subtly suggests that war dehumanizes all sides, reducing individuals to mere pawns in political games. This complexity invites audiences to question the true nature of heroism and villainy, encouraging a more nuanced understanding of conflict. Justice, or the lack thereof, pulses at the heart of the narrative. Rambo's mission to find and rescue American POWs reflects a national obsession with closure and redemption for the Vietnam War. Yet, the film exposes the painful reality that justice is often delayed, incomplete, or corrupted. The empty prison camp Rambo discovers is a haunting metaphor for broken promises and forgotten sacrifices. This silence speaks volumes about the disillusionment felt by veterans and the American public alike. Rambo's personal quest becomes a microcosm of this larger societal struggle. His refusal to accept defeat and his relentless pursuit of truth and justice echo the frustrations of a generation betrayed by political decisions and societal neglect. His transformation from reluctant operative to vengeful avenger symbolizes a demand for accountability and recognition. The violence that follows is not mere spectacle. It is an expression of pent-up rage against injustice and betrayal. Symbolism in First Blood Part 2 extends into smaller, yet meaningful details. The iconic compound bow wielded by Rambo is a striking example. It stands in stark contrast to the modern firearms used by both the enemy and his own side, symbolizing a connection to primal, almost spiritual warrior traditions. The bow's silent, precise kills underscore Rambo's resourcefulness and his preference for control amidst chaos. It also reflects a deeper respect for nature and the art of survival, themes that run throughout the film. Bow's character, though tragically brief, is rich with symbolic significance. She represents hope, innocence, and the possibility of peace in a world scarred by conflict. Her alliance with Rambo bridges cultural divides and hints at the potential for healing. Her death, therefore, is not just a plot device but a symbolic loss of hope, marking the moment where the film's tone shifts toward darker, more vengeful territory. It reinforces the devastating human cost of war, reminding the audience that even the brightest hopes can be extinguished by violence. The film's portrayal of authority figures also carries thematic weight. Colonel Troutman, as a mentor and link to Rambo's military past, embodies the institutional system that both supports and constrains the warrior. His role highlights the tension between loyalty to the military and the moral ambiguities of government missions. Meanwhile, the corrupt officials and shady operatives who betray Rambo expose the darker side of political power, self-interest, deception, and moral compromise. This critique resonates with real-world skepticism about government transparency and accountability in the aftermath of Vietnam. On a broader cultural level, First Blood Part 2 reflects the United States' complex relationship with the Vietnam War during the mid-1980s. The film taps into a collective need to revisit and rewrite the narrative of a war that left deep national wounds. By portraying Rambo as a lone hero fighting to rescue forgotten prisoners, the movie feeds into a desire for redemption and closure. It acknowledges the pain and confusion of the era, but also offers a cathartic fantasy of triumph and justice. This cultural context adds layers to the film's themes. It is not just an action story but a commentary on memory, history, and national identity. The American audience is invited to confront the lingering effects of a contentious war while simultaneously finding solace in the heroism of a single figure who takes matters into his own hands. This duality helps explain the film's immense popularity and lasting impact. The jungle battles and guerrilla tactics Rambo employs also symbolize resistance against overwhelming odds. They echo historical narratives of underdog fighters using cunning and courage to survive against more powerful forces. In this way, the film speaks to broader human themes of perseverance and adaptability. Rambo's ability to turn the environment itself into a weapon underscores a theme of harmony between man and nature, contrasting with the destructive machinery of modern warfare. Violence in the film is never glorified without consequence. Each gunfight, explosion, and struggle is infused with a sense of cost and urgency. The personal losses, especially Bow's death and Rambo's own injuries, remind viewers that violence carries deep scars. This sobering perspective challenges audiences to reflect on the true price of war and revenge, preventing the film from becoming a simple celebration of action. The ending of the movie encapsulates many of these themes. Rambo's battered, weary return is both a victory and a reminder of what has been sacrificed. There is no triumphant fanfare, only a quiet recognition of survival and loss. This bittersweet conclusion reinforces the film's message that heroism is complex and often lonely, marked by sacrifice and unresolved pain. Moreover, the film's use of sound and music enhances its thematic richness. Jerry Goldsmith's haunting score weaves through moments of tension, loss, and action, evoking a wide range of emotions. The contrast between silence and sudden violence in the sound design mirrors the unpredictable nature of trauma and conflict. These auditory elements deepen the audience's immersion and underscore the film's emotional currents. In essence, Rambo, First Blood Part 2 is a cinematic journey into the psyche of a soldier shaped by war and burdened by memory. Its themes of trauma, justice, and identity resonate far beyond its explosive surface. The symbolism woven throughout, from the jungle to the compound bow, from Kobao's tragic presence to the corrupt authorities, creates a layered narrative that invites viewers to think critically about the costs of conflict and the meaning of heroism. The film's reflection of real-world issues, especially its nuanced take on the Vietnam War's legacy and government accountability, positions it as both entertainment and social commentary. It captures a moment in American cultural history when the wounds of war were still fresh and the search for healing was ongoing. By embedding these deeper messages naturally into its story, First Blood Part 2 remains a compelling and thought-provoking experience. In closing, the movie's enduring appeal lies in its ability to combine thrilling action with profound thematic exploration. It tells a story that is both personal and universal, a tale of survival, loss, and the quest for redemption. This seamless blend of excitement and meaning ensures that Rambo, First Blood Part 2 is remembered not just as an action classic, but as a film that speaks to the complexities of the human condition in the shadow of war. From the very opening frames of Rambo, First Blood Part 2, it's clear that director George P. Cosmatos crafted a film where visual storytelling and cinematic techniques are not just background elements, but integral parts of the narrative itself. Every shot, every sound, and every edit combines to create an immersive experience that pulls the viewer deep into John Rambo's world. A harsh, unpredictable landscape where survival depends as much on sharp perception as physical strength. One of the film's most striking features is its gritty, realistic visual style. Cinematographer Jack Cardiff, a master of lighting and composition, uses natural light and muted colors to ground the film in a believable, visceral reality. The jungles of Vietnam, recreated with impressive detail, are more than just a setting. They become a living, breathing character. The canopy filters light unevenly, casting shifting patterns of shadow and sunlight that create a sense of disorientation and danger. These lighting choices amplify the feeling of claustrophobia and unpredictability, key to the suspense and tension that permeate the film. The color palette itself is carefully controlled, favoring earth tones, deep greens, browns, and grays, that reinforce the jungle's camouflage and the murky moral landscape of the story. This subdued color scheme contrasts sharply with the bright flashes of explosions and gunfire, which jolt the eye and highlight moments of violent conflict. This interplay between calm and chaos is central to the film's rhythm, visually mirroring Rambo's own struggle to maintain control amid chaos. Camera movement is another tool that shapes the film's intense atmosphere. The use of handheld cameras during action sequences creates a sense of immediacy and immersion. These shots often track close behind Rambo, putting the viewer almost in his boots as he moves stealthily through the jungle or sprints across hostile terrain. This technique enhances the tension, making each footstep feel precarious and every encounter unpredictable. Conversely, wider shots are used strategically to establish scale and isolation. When the camera pulls back to reveal the vastness of the jungle or the emptiness of the POW camp, it emphasizes Rambo's loneliness and the enormity of his task. These compositions remind the audience that he is a single figure fighting against overwhelming odds, heightening the emotional stakes. Editing plays a crucial role in balancing the film's pacing. Editor Joel Goodman carefully intersperses moments of quiet suspense with bursts of high-energy action, creating a dynamic flow that keeps viewers engaged without overwhelming them. Slow builds, such as Rambo's stealth infiltration of the prison camp, contrast with rapid, visceral cuts during combat scenes, allowing the audience to both absorb the tension and experience the adrenaline rush. The transitions between these moods feel natural and deliberate, guiding the viewer's emotional journey. For example, lingering shots of Rambo's contemplative moments in the jungle allow the audience to connect with his internal struggles, while fast-paced edits during firefights convey the chaos and urgency of survival. This careful editorial rhythm prevents the film from becoming monotonous and maintains a strong narrative drive. Sound design in First Blood Part 2 is equally vital to the cinematic experience. The jungle's ambient noises, chirping insects, rustling leaves, distant animal calls, are meticulously layered to create an immersive soundscape. These natural sounds build tension, often foreshadowing danger before it appears visually. The silence in certain scenes, like the empty prison camp, is just as powerful, creating an eerie stillness that unsettles the viewer. Explosions, gunfire, and close-quarter combat sounds are mixed with precision to heighten impact without overwhelming the senses. The sharp twang of Rambo's compound bow stands out in this sound palette, a distinct auditory signature that punctuates his stealthy attacks. This contrast between natural and violent sounds deepens the sensory experience, making every battle feel immediate and real. Jerry Goldsmith's score weaves seamlessly through the film, underscoring its emotional and narrative beats with a masterful blend of haunting melodies and rousing themes. The music shifts from somber, reflective passages during Rambo's quieter moments to intense, driving rhythms during action sequences. This dynamic scoring helps guide audience emotions and enhances the storytelling without ever feeling intrusive. One particularly memorable stylistic choice is the use of slow motion during key action moments. These sequences do more than emphasize physical feats. They allow the audience to savor the tension and intensity of the moment. For instance, during the climactic assault on the prison camp, slow-motion shots capture Rambo's precise movements, highlighting his skill and determination. This technique also gives weight to the violence, encouraging viewers to reflect on the consequences rather than simply witnessing spectacle. The film's sound editing and mixing further amplify this effect. In slow-motion scenes, ambient sounds often drop away or become muffled, replaced by the swelling score or the echo of Rambo's breath and movements. This creates a heightened, almost dreamlike state that pulls viewers deeper into his perspective, fostering empathy and understanding of his lone struggle. Visual symbolism is also communicated through cinematography and set design. The prison camp's desolate, decaying structures are framed to convey abandonment and hopelessness. Shots linger on rusted bars, empty cages, and faded signs, visual metaphors for forgotten prisoners and broken promises. The contrast between these bleak images and Rambo's fierce vitality underscores the themes of survival and resistance. Costuming and makeup further reinforce character and mood. Rambo's rugged, often mud-smeared appearance reflects his primal state and physical ordeal. The grime and sweat are not just realistic details but symbols of his immersion into the harsh environment and the brutal demands placed on him. Bao's softer, simpler attire contrasts with the harsh jungle and Rambo's warrior image, visually representing her innocence and humanity amidst violence. Another stylistic element that stands out is the strategic use of framing and perspective. Many scenes place Rambo in the center of the frame, underscoring his role as the story's focal point and the embodiment of determination. At other times, the camera positions him at the edge of the frame or obscured by foliage, visually representing his outsider status and the constant threat he faces. The film also employs point-of-view shots sparingly but effectively, especially during moments of stealth or confrontation. These shots invite the audience to see through Rambo's eyes, enhancing identification with his experience and heightening suspense. This technique contributes to the immersive quality of the film, making viewers feel like active participants rather than passive observers. Lighting design, in addition to natural sources, is used symbolically throughout the movie. Scenes lit with harsh, direct light often correspond with moments of danger or revelation, while softer, diffused lighting accompanies quieter, reflective scenes. For example, the fleeting moments Rambo shares with Bao are bathed in gentle light, visually marking these interactions as rare pockets of warmth and hope within the film's darker landscape. The interplay of light and shadow also accentuates the film's themes of concealment and revelation. The jungle's shadows hide threats and secrets, while bursts of light often expose truth or danger. This dynamic creates visual tension that complements the story's emotional stakes. Unique stylistic flourishes from director George P. Cosmatos further define the film's tone. His direction balances raw, unpolished action with moments of quiet humanity, creating a texture that feels both epic and intimate. Cosmatos' choice to focus on character-driven scenes amid the action sequences allows the film to breathe, giving emotional moments the space to resonate fully. Cosmatos also utilizes spatial awareness masterfully. His blocking of characters within the frame communicates relationships and power dynamics without needing explicit dialogue. For example, Rambo's physical dominance in many scenes is emphasized by his positioning relative to others, often standing taller, occupying more space, or framed against imposing backgrounds. Moreover, the choreography of action scenes demonstrates a commitment to realism and storytelling clarity. Rather than relying solely on fast cuts or visual effects, the film showcases carefully staged combat sequences that highlight Rambo's tactical mind and physical prowess. This approach not only enhances believability but keeps the audience oriented within chaotic moments, maintaining engagement and emotional investment. In the film's quieter moments, the camera lingers on small, telling details. A trembling hand, a fleeting glance, a scarred face, adding layers of meaning that reward attentive viewers. These choices reflect a sophisticated visual storytelling style that values subtlety alongside spectacle. The final sequences exemplify the culmination of these cinematic techniques. The frantic assault on the prison camp is shot with a mix of wide shots that establish scale and close-ups that capture raw emotion. The editing rhythm accelerates, mirroring the escalating tension and chaos, while the score surges to a powerful crescendo. The interplay of light, shadow, sound, and movement here creates an overwhelming sensory experience that immerses the audience fully in the climax. Yet, even amid this intensity, the film never loses sight of Rambo's personal journey. The camera often cuts back to his face, marked by grit, pain, and determination, reminding viewers that this is a deeply human story as much as an action spectacle. This balance between epic scale and intimate focus is one of the film's defining cinematic achievements. In conclusion, Rambo: First Blood Part 2 stands as a masterclass in cinematic techniques and visual storytelling. Its thoughtful use of lighting, color, camera movement, editing, sound design, and score combine to create an immersive and emotionally rich experience. Unique stylistic choices from the director and cinematographer ensure that every frame contributes to the narrative's power, making the film memorable not only for its thrilling action but for its artistry in storytelling. The film's visual and auditory language draws viewers into John Rambo's world, conveying his struggles, hopes, and triumphs with clarity and depth. This seamless integration of cinematic craft and storytelling elevates the film beyond typical action fare, ensuring its lasting impact on audiences and its place as a seminal work in the genre. The magic of Rambo: First Blood Part 2 is inseparable from the dynamic chemistry that pulses between its cast members, the intense energy on set, and the wave of audience reactions that followed its release, each element feeding into the other to create a film that remains iconic decades later. From the moment principal photography began, the actors forged relationships that transcended the script, and their interactions brought authenticity and emotional depth to a story steeped in raw tension and explosive action. Central to this was Sylvester Stallone, whose embodiment of John Rambo was no mere performance but a personal crusade. Having originated the character in First Blood, Stallone returned with a clear vision of Rambo as a complex figure, part warrior, part wounded soul. His commitment to the role went beyond physical preparation. It extended into the way he engaged with his co-stars and crew, fostering a sense of camaraderie that reflected the brotherhood experienced by soldiers, something the film demanded to feel genuine. Stallone's interaction with Crenna, who portrayed Colonel Troutman, was especially vital. Their scenes together carry an emotional weight rooted in a palpable rapport that hints at years of shared history. Off-camera, Stallone and Crenna reportedly shared moments of mutual respect and trust, which translated to the screen, enhancing the mentor-mentee relationship that anchors much of the film's emotional core. Their ability to play off each other's energy elevated scenes that might have otherwise felt routine, grounding the high-octane narrative in believable human connection. The brief but poignant presence of Julia Nixon as Co-Bao also contributed a critical emotional layer. Despite her limited screen time, Her chemistry with Stallone was unmistakable, adding vulnerability and humanity to the film's rugged landscape. Behind the scenes, Stallone and Nixon reportedly worked closely to build trust, allowing their on-screen partnership to feel sincere rather than perfunctory. This relationship provided a quiet counterbalance to the film's violence, reminding viewers of the personal stakes beneath the action. Beyond the leads, the supporting cast contributed richly textured performances that created a vivid world. Steven Berkoff's portrayal of the cold, calculating Soviet antagonist added a menacing foil to Rambo's rugged heroism. Berkoff's theatrical background brought a heightened intensity to his role, and his off-screen professionalism and preparation reportedly challenged Stallone and the crew to match his commitment, pushing performances to a higher level. This kind of behind-the-scenes competitive spirit infused the film with palpable energy. The chemistry extended beyond just the actors to the entire set environment, where the demands of shooting in remote, challenging locations in Thailand forged bonds through shared hardship. The cast and crew often had to contend with intense heat, dense jungle terrain, and complex logistics, factors that could easily fracture morale but instead seemed to bring people closer. Stories from the production highlight moments of levity and solidarity, such as impromptu meals shared under the canopy and late-night discussions about character motivations, which contributed to a collective focus on storytelling excellence. This sense of unity was vital given the film's ambitious action sequences, which required meticulous coordination and trust. For example, the scenes involving Rambo's infiltration of the POW camp demanded not only physical stamina but an understanding between stunt coordinators, cameramen, and actors to achieve a seamless flow. Stallone's hands-on approach, sometimes stepping into choreography discussions, helped ensure the action was as authentic as it was thrilling. The actors' willingness to push physical limits and support one another in stunts underscored a collective dedication that's felt strongly on screen. This dedication extended to the technical crew as well. The director, George P. Cosmatos, was known for his collaborative style, often encouraging actors to improvise or deepen their characters during shooting. This openness fostered a creative atmosphere where performances could grow organically. Stallone's influence as a producer further facilitated this environment, balancing the need for disciplined action with space for emotional nuance. Upon release on May 22, 1985, Rambo, First Blood Part 2 struck a chord with audiences worldwide. The film arrived during a cultural moment when America was still wrestling with the aftermath of the Vietnam War, and viewers found in Rambo a figure of catharsis and fantasy. The audience's response was electric, box office numbers soared, making it one of the highest-grossing films of the year. Fans embraced the raw power and intensity of Stallone's performance, as well as the movie's unapologetic action sequences. Critics were divided, however. Some praised the film's technical achievements and Stallone's star power, while others criticized it for glorifying violence and presenting a simplistic view of complex historical events. Yet, even detractors acknowledged the film's visceral impact and the undeniable charisma of its lead. This tension between critical response and popular appeal only fueled the film's cult status, sparking discussions that persist to this day. Fan engagement blossomed in myriad ways. From action figure collections to comic book adaptations and endless midnight screenings, First Blood Part 2 captured imaginations far beyond the silver screen. The character of Rambo became a cultural icon, a symbol of rugged individualism and resilience. Fans often point to the palpable chemistry and authentic performances as key reasons the film resonates so deeply, making it not just an action movie but a shared experience.